Hello, everybody. This is Wang with Constellation Research. I'm here with Vikrant Chowdhary. He's the Senior Vice President, and of course, he's there for growth markets, including India, Middle East, and other growth areas. So welcome. Let's talk about a very hot topic. And I think we've all been talking about AI, but no one's really having a deep, meaningful conversation. So let's start with the basics. Where are we on this hype curve? What is this reality? What's going on here as we go through all these different buzzwords in AI?
So thank you for making time for this conversation. And from growth markets perspective and my visibility to India and Middle East Africa kind of enterprise segments that we operate in, it is such a phenomenal change and a meaningful time for transformation. But it is important to realize where we are at this moment. And like you rightly said, AI, classical AI to generative AI to agentic AI journey, I'm seeing we seem to be in a phase 3 of evolution, as customers tell me. Phase 1 was very low-hanging content generation specific use cases like marketing, customer service, what have you. And in that phase, especially in India, things like language translation projects like Bhashani, where India is a very multicultural land and multilingual. Every 200 kilometers, we change our language and cuisine. And I think generative AI helped phenomenally on language translation piece, content generation piece, etc. Phase 2 started becoming a little bit of an automation. How do we automate some workflows inside the enterprise? And that's where rubber started meeting the road on what is real enterprise workload. And what we have seen success is things which were, again, content-centric documents, invoice extraction, accounts payable, automation, etc. Code generation. We are also a very large developer nation. On the planet. So that's been a success phase. But as we pivot to the phase 3, which is agentic, where a little bit of an agency and decision-making power gets into, software, clearly this is not a very happy trail of, it's like Waymo ride for a lot of CXOs into the company. Delegating that steering wheel has its own nuance. And as we converse through, I'll throw more light. I've been meeting business leaders, technology leaders, AI leaders, so to say, inside the companies. And let's peel the onion through the conversation, Ray. I think we are clearly on the phase 3. And this is, like I said, is a feeling of a Waymo ride by CXOs, and what to delegate, what to let that agent have the agency on is not a single person decision making subject. It's also a readiness subject. It's also a cultural subject, and so on. So many nuances. Glad to be here with you and have this nuanced conversation.
Yeah, we're definitely saying that. And I think one of the interesting things is classical AI was 2 + 2 = 4, 100% of the time. Nobody doubted you. Generative AI was 2 + 2 might equal 4 with RAG, model drift, and some other kind of corrections. And then, of course, we're now in the agentic era, which is 2 + 2 = 4. What would you like to do with that information? How do we turn that insight into action? So that takes us to the question, what are some of those use cases and outcomes customers are seeing and expecting?
I had the privilege of hosting one of the CXO roundtable, Ray, very recently on this topic of use cases. Okay, and let me begin. An interesting aspect in the room was how do you source use cases? Okay, and how do you source use cases? Even generative AI can actually say, I'm in this industry, I'm a banker, I'm a tier 1 private sector bank, and so-and-so is my ratio, etc. And how do I do my efficiency better? Or how do I do my acquisition better? And use cases emerge. But what is the method of sourcing use cases is federated decision-making, or centralized decision-making, or decision-making with a consultant who helps you ride that road of selection, curation, in business impact, dollars and cents. I think the room was gave me a very interesting insight. Federated versus centralized versus enabled. I saw 3 examples. There are three clusters of people. People who are actually assuming responsibility that this is a foundational change. It's like a new electricity, and the electricity needs to power multitudes of applications and appliances, and therefore it's an every department's ownership. And let's run it federated, but have a curation engine, create an AI council of sorts where this curation, which is meaningful to that enterprise, works for their impact. Okay, versus, hey, enable, I have a consultant who's helping me drive through this journey of curation, which means they are doing a set of workshops, etc. And the third model was centralized, which means a centralized thinking group is thinking through the use cases that work for us. If I gravitate all the three, the number one winner was customer experience centric use cases. And I'm underlining the word experience and not really customer service, customer experience, which means acquisition, origination, onboarding, service, delight, and what have you, clearly wins the race of the use cases dimension. There are productivity which is baked in underneath, but productivity for the purpose of driving stakeholder experience was the clear winner. And there is also this whole nuance of let's figure out use cases that can help us make the dollar versus save the dollar. Okay, I think that's a sectoral as well as horizontal nuance of where do I deploy IT, and in technology parlance, cost per token piece of this also helps. Do I deploy this much of compute to make a dollar sustainably and be frictionless versus save the dollar? That's been the debate.
That's absolutely right. Right. We're seeing a couple of models, right? So think about culture of abundance, culture of scarcity. Think about centralized versus decentralized, right? And some models are always going to be centralized scarcity. And in that kind of centralized scarcity model, that is command control dictatorship. That is like, very, very different. Our decentralized abundance model is what you call the federated model. And it's going to be interesting to see what along that spectrum, what people choose for certain types of activities. Some things definitely are going to be centralized control. Nobody wants to give access to them, but other things are going to flourish when we get to decentralized abundance. So it's very, very exciting that you're seeing that, especially as in customer experience journeys. Those are going to be the ones where it's a question of, do we guide them? Do we completely lead them, right? Or do we let them do whatever they want and choose their own adventure? So,
yeah. So very interesting. I think in that, choice is not just adventure versus impact. Choice is cost efficiency and the business metric impact.
yes.
Okay. We clearly see people now transitioning from an experimentation or a POC stage to an impact stage, and the shrinking of POC time is a testimony to that, because when you do a POC in a production centric environment, it's like cost is per day per certain quarantine scale also is taking a certain degree of cost. Okay, so I see a healthy change to people's readiness, that this cost is legitimate. Okay, but selection needs to be much more wiser. So I think there is a greater collaboration in matured companies whose digital maturity is far higher, because we're clearly seeing digital is equal to business. They are really not separate words. They're saying, hey, I used to do a physical business, and now a percentage of that physical business needs to happen digitally. Whose maturity has gone up, this council of folks who are curating these POC to production are actually cross-culture, cross-departmental council who's thinking about security, cost, and impact in one pane.
You're right. These are very multidisciplinary teams, and we're seeing it across the board, right? There's always a business driver. So you have a business leader in charge. There's always what you have to do on the compliance and security side. So you see someone there, and there's always someone driving the innovation conversation. That change management is easy in one respect, given the fact that people have a common goal, but it's also hard because the question is, what scale are we working at? In digitalization and digital transformation, we're excited about 30 to 40% improvements. We're now at a point where these are 100%. These are 1,000%. They're even 10,000% improvements that we're seeing, not just in efficiency, but also in speed. So are there certain things that you're telling customers to do yourself? You're figuring out how to actually fix that cultural and change management, or to at least make them aware that we're operating at machine scale today, not just in human scale.
Very, very important point, Ray. There is a bit of risk aversion in that dimension of planet scale impact possibility with this agency. And that cultural nuance of change management is a hard one. There is a mixed feeling of risk aversion versus over reliance on relationships. We are a very relationship driven society and enterprise ecosystem, and multilingual kind of thing also puts a friction on that. However, this change nuances being very well understood. Like, for example, I met a bank who had a very simple process of customer grievances related responses. Okay,
No.
customer grievance. Somebody sends an email, hey, I couldn't fix my bank's account statement, something was wrong.
Yep.
The number of those emails are in thousands per branch, and that bank had more than 15,000 branches in the country, and you can imagine the scale. And their current process was manual, meaning somebody responding to those emails. And I'm not really saying the Gen AI related impact of simplifying response, but I'm talking of the second step where the whole thing gets extract email from a common email box of grievance redressal, read it out, draft a response, and have an agency to do the first response themselves and
Yep.
call out these were the green response. That agency related piece, business needs it. Scale is massive because imagine the number of human beings who are actually doing that piece of workload. But more than the workload, that efficiency is instantaneous. It's compliance driven, instantaneous. So recognizing this and redeploying those humans for a higher level workload of how do we go from this very trivial just email respond efficiently managing TAT and compliance.
Oh yeah. So Vikrant, you're talking about this really deep cultural change and change management that's happening. The companies that are ready, where this is happening. My question to you, a little bit different, is really, where do you see this digitization journey going? It's built around data. Does it continue? Does it end? Is it moving at a faster pace? What's the ferociousness of this? So
Oh, that's the elephant in the room, Ray. Extremely well called out point. And what we are seeing is the data readiness in the enterprise has its own legacy some places, and modernization, multi-temperature, multi-technology, and there is no one size fits all on
no,
data.
no,
Okay. And unless data is right, in fact, data about data is near absent, meaning a metadata library vocabulary of what do you call a product, what do you call a customer, what do you call a transaction is so rapidly changing because some businesses are by nature, by their history, product led. Some businesses are customer led and never thought of products or service as
no,
KYization.
no,
Like the case of banks, for example, by the very history of banking system, they were product-centric organizations. They are evolving to become a customer-centric organization. And therefore, data of credit card is one core system. Their data of a core CASA account is one core system, and
no.
foreign currency in a core system, and so on. So getting data right is a humongous exercise. The maturity on this is very nuanced, and I think it's not even an 80-20 curve, it's 95-5 ratio. Only 5% of digitally mature organizations got this, who had traversed this journey of yesteryear's data warehouses changing to data lakes, changing to multi-temperature, mobile ready, cloud native, hyper diverse kind of data readiness, data integration, data governance projects are ready to feed into AI for business impact meaningfully. So the
You're
elephant in the room is data projects.
Yeah, no, you're right. And think about it. I mean, look at your expertise at Salesforce and SAP and Teradata and IBM, right? At the end of the day, it does come back to that data. Data is key to digitization, and digitation is key to AI. And these are the challenges people have. But we still have to abstract data. It's sitting in all these different silos, and how do we put it together? That federated data capabilities is so important. Once we do that, then what we're trying to do is figure out how we can automate decisions. What we can do to actually bring those flows, those journeys together to life to get to some level of intelligence. And then what gets really interesting is, what do we do with user experience? I mean, I've seen sites now that have no UX. It's voice. It's voice only. There's no graphical UX. I've seen other sites where they've gone deep on the AR, MR, VR. And so every organization is struggling with the same aspects of, getting that data abstracted somewhere, your data lake, whatever you call it. Maybe you're back to master data again, and we don't know. And then, of course, some way of actually, managing workflows, journeys, orchestration, and automation, and of course, the user experience. So, what common challenges do they have to do? What are they trying to overcome in these scenarios?
Actually, if I summarize, we have come up with a framework of action agents. The end goal.
Action agents. That's right. So
the end goal is people are wanting to have in their own enterprise a catalog of action agents who have action capability and not just an automation capability, and move from automation to autonomous action agents on operations, action agents on experience, and action agents on even data. And I think that whole piece of action agents is the outcome, but every enterprise will have their own catalog of action agents.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You just walked through a progression. We have something similar. We start by talking, level 1 is augmentation, level 2 is the level acceleration, level 3 is getting to some level automation, level 4 is getting the agentized options, and then level 5 is completely autonomous in terms of that decision-making capability. It sounds like there's a lot of policy we still have to do on the back end in terms of getting that governance right. Where do you sit on that?
That's also, like data, the number 2 question in the room, because if you see B2C companies where the business impact can be massive, are consumer companies where a consumer-centric data is of foundational importance, and also the financial services companies, etc. So there are regulated sectors like banking, healthcare, telecom, pieces of sectors, and also a non-regulated pieces of sector. I think compliance is not just to regulation, but also to the process compliance, identity compliance, the security compliance kind of thing. So compliance is again becoming a multi-departmental subject. Earlier, there used to be a regulatory compliance officer in the room. It is now, do you tick the boxes of security compliance, regulatory compliance, process compliance, consumer data, etc. So this is, like I said, like data, compliance is yet another piece of very, very big question in front of enterprises to solve for. Can't hear you, Ray.
So maybe we need a chief AI officer. What do you think? So
that's a debate in multiple rooms. Do we need a chief AI officer?
Do we need another C-suite officer? This is the question here. So
yeah,
I mean, they could handle the compliance. They could coordinate all the activities. I mean, we have a chief digital officer. The other day, I saw a chief AI digital transformation technology intelligence officer. I think we ran out of acronyms, but these exist. So
yeah, so I think there again, nuance from our first question that we began with. Okay, federated versus centralized, and who takes the baton inside the company. This is a collaboration subject. We spoke about data, collaboration subject. We spoke about compliance, collaboration subject. We spoke about use cases, sourcing, how do we get it right, business impact, etc. Therefore, the so-called AI responsibility officer, okay, is someone who actually builds bridges across departments and cracks the code around compliance, security, governance, curation, and he's a chief collaboration officer. And hence, actually putting one person in charge may not is a nuanced answer. In some companies, it may work because he's the chief collaboration officer. And some companies, it just may not work because, who's one person to seek answers from different departments who themselves are the custodian of data, their compliance, and their ownership of customer workload. And therefore, I think it's a subject which is customer to customer different. And those who can have a very tribal, knowledge-centric collaboration officers, very tied to the hip with CEOs. I saw an experiment with one of the customer who have floated an AI council driven by the CEO.
Oh, yeah, we've seen this.
Fantastic experience saying, no, AI is everyone's responsibility. Let's float an AI council, which is a multidisciplinary council, and we meet every 2 weeks to curate, to take calls, make decisions. But nuanced answer, Ray. Need is very well identified, but the need seemed to be less of a technology AI knowledge custodian to more of a collaborator of sorts who naturally gravitates and actually kills the red tape, which is lying in the enterprise processes, and make sure that the impact happens faster.
Great point. And we're definitely seeing it does depend on how centralized or how federated or decentralized you are. That is one of the big challenges. I think not a lot of people have seen that trend or were able to put together the pattern recognition of why that's so important. Speaking about what's shifting and changing, there's a lot of talk about this concept called AI exponentials. And for us, these are companies that are starting out AI native. They're getting exponential returns. And more importantly, they're able to actually build businesses off of data. The data aspect is spinning off a whole new revenue stream. In some cases, company investors are valuing that revenue stream as much as forward revenue, forward guidance on profits, because they see the flywheel effect on that data. Where do you see this shift in terms of scale? And let me give you an example. We think there's 100-person software company that might be able to take out one of the software majors. We believe that 1,000-person services firm could get to $1 billion in revenue. And we think that maybe one individual on their own using AI can get to maybe $1 billion in their own ARR. So does that scale surprise you at all?
Doesn't surprise me, but actually create chills in the massiveness of this transformation when it comes to a human-centric fabric that we have in our cultural roots, especially in 1.4 billion country like India, or a close to about 12 trillion GDP of growth markets that we are facing in India, Middle East, Africa, and that 12 trillion changing to a 20 trillion kind of forecast in next 6 to 8 years, 2030. It's actually a generational change on economic shift and an extremely generational change on the technology shift. And what you said as a one-person billion-dollar ARR company, imagine the BPO workload in India. We ourselves have a managed service unit, and a lot of our customers are in that field. There is a wave of GCCs, global captive centers in India, serving the globe, multiple dimensions. This is an exponential shift. And in that exponential shift, what I see is service as software is the new way of consumption, rather than services powered by software. Okay,
Exactly.
So the outcome of agent is service as software. So the host of customer service agents into a process becoming an outcome, becoming a set of agents as software being shipped as outcome, and an outcome-centric pricing models emerging into the beast. and the humans are slowly needing to graduate to the people who control those outcomes, because they have the process knowledge of doing it for many years. But exponentials are real. Its adoption, if you cut this by B2B versus a B2C, and we are specifically talking to enterprise workloads today,
Yep.
the things like financial inclusion, education at scale, BPO, GCC nuance out of India, or even in neighboring countries, is going to be a massive benefit creator, and at the same time, workforce transitioner into a very meaningful shift. But it's very large and it's very fast. And I think there the calibration and skill factory needs to run on a daily basis. How do we graduate people who are rendering the service versus people who are creating service as software agentic outcomes? Yeah, that's
That's
where it
right.
is.
And when you think about growth rates in areas like Eastern Africa, South Sudan, Libya, Senegal, I mean, you're seeing these countries start to leapfrog because they don't have to start with the legacy technical debt, right? They're vibe
True,
coding, they're coding at the speed of thought. And so
true.
you're seeing different types of behaviors. I mean, you know, waterfall versus agile, who cares? I'm vibe coding. I mean, this is the shift that we're seeing across the board. So it's definitely different. But let's take a historical step back. Uh, think about what advice you gave someone 6 months ago, and tell me if it's still valid. And then what would you expect 6 months out? Because this is moving so fast. And to put some context, and 6 months ago, we were worried about Open AI and ChatGPT and Microsoft taking over the world. And 6 months later, that's and 6 months 6 months before, Google was seen as dead, right? No AI, no prospects. Now 6 months later, it's a very different story.
Very true. Very true. And we are feeling it in our knees, in our spirit, in our day-to-day interactions with customers, Ray. To the matter of advice, actually 6 months earlier, we were positioning how do we render platforms which
Yes.
can make these outcomes happen. Today, recognizing the fact that people need outcomes and they're navigating multitudes of challenges, including AI as a stack and not AI as one piece of AI solution inside a particular workflow. Uh, to the third part of the thing of what we spoke as data regulatory kind of guidance, I think 6 months out, we will start building up very credible outcome centric of approach to service as software,
Yeah.
which will pivot around action agents. And literally in all enterprises, there is some sort of front office, mid office, back office, or we can say experience, operations, and data. Okay. Uh, Agency will appear in all three workloads. And we are needing to 6 months later create factories inside the companies and take ownership of those outcomes, that we will no more be selling software and stitching services, but we will be custodians of service as software outcomes, and be responsible for customers' center of excellence, so to say, which drives that.
Yeah, and I actually think that shift with your action agents, I think that's going to be very important because customers want to be able to tie a business outcome to their agentic investments that are going there. All right,
Sure.
last thing. We're probably talking people years off. What is the first thing any leader should do in the age of AI? Where would you just get started, knowing what you know today?
All right. I think the first thing is recognizing, accepting people signing up to what this foundational change can take the enterprise to the era of abundance rather than a conflict with it. So embrace and be ready for era of abundance and sign up stakeholders into it. The responsibility that that piece of action will generate is three-pronged. Take charge of your data, because unless data is in the right
Yep.
shape, this will not create outcome. Take charge of regulatory and compliance assessments. And third is reduce vendor gravity. It's the era of my stack, my software, my LLM, my code is going to be over. It'll be federated. And like you're seeing maturity on LLMs, almost becoming like an Android-like maturity. Here is an operating system, and the next version can only update a finite number of features. That will come very soon. You observe GPT 4 to 5 a few days back, etc. So that'll become like a baseline. And I think data regulation, collaboration, and this cultural aspect of making sure it's a relentless pursuit of a CEO surrounded AI council is that piece of leadership moment where we became responsible to create the next level of abundance for our enterprises.
Got it. Data, regulation, collaboration, and that endless pursuit and passion to get to that outcome. That's really what you're talking about, like high level precision execution. So
yeah.
Wow. Well, Vikrant, this has been wonderful. We've had a chance to hit topics hard, but more importantly, have an honest conversation about where we are in AI. I think a lot of executives are trying to figure out what's hype, what's not. But more importantly, here's some real use cases, real conversations, and really a thinking and framework that some other companies can adopt.